back in April, there was a seriously weird event which attracted some seriously extreme people. Patriots arise for God and country, taking back what is rightfully ours in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. QAnon, Christian nationalists, election-denying lawyer Jenna Ellis, anti-vax Dr. Elizabeth Eads, they all came together to try and save the country from, quote, white-collar criminal Joe Biden and Hussein Obama. They even gave out something called a David sword and featured conspiracy theories from the darkest corners of the internet.
Media propaganda, the child trafficking, and the slave economy. All of these control systems will crumble down. The darkness will collapse in only a few countries at first, but other countries will soon follow. We will unite against the dark.
Hitler faked his own death? Who knew? So why am I telling you about this bonkers far-right Christian nationalist QAnon conference that happened a month ago? Well, because one of the attendees there is going to be in the news a lot more going forward. Remember the guy with the sword?
Oh, yeah. Where's Goliath? Thank you.
You're welcome. Bless you. Wow, how powerful is that? Oh my gosh, our next governor. Woo!
That's right. GOP State Senator Doug Mastriano just won his primary, becoming the Republican candidate for Pennsylvania governor. He'll face off against Democratic candidate and current state attorney general Josh Shapiro in November. Mastriano likes to lead with his Christianity and military background. According to his website, he was deployed 3 times to Afghanistan and retired from the U.S. Army after 30 years of active duty as a colonel. And if you're wondering about his platform now, Mastriano made his intentions very clear last night in his victory speech.
On day one, any mandates are gone. Yep. On day one, any jab for job requirements are gone. On day one, CRT's over. We're going to exactly do that and follow the science, right? So that means only biological females can play on biological female teams. On day one, you can only use the bathroom that your biology anatomy says. 1 Corinthians 1:27 gives us all hope. God uses the foolish to confound the wise and the weak to confound the strong, right? That's his story. And he uses people like you and me to change history. They like to call people who stand on the Constitution far right and extreme. I repudiate that. Actually, their party, which the media stands for and advocates for, they've gone extreme.
But that's not even the worst of it. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Mastriano used campaign money to charter buses taking Trump supporters to Washington, D.C. on January the 6th, 2021. Mastriano was also reportedly in attendance outside the Capitol on the day of the insurrection, though he says he left before the riot started and later condemned the violence. What's not in dispute is that Mastriano was an avid Stop the Steal proponent who tried to use his position in the Pennsylvania legislature to overturn the election in that state. He said so himself.
The resolution is going to say we're going to take our power back. We're going to seat the electors. Now, obviously, we're going to need the support of the leadership in the House and Senate. We're getting there on that, but we need to act like.
Hold it. I think we got some breaking news here. You're saying you're going to get a joint resolution to actually go forward, and the Republicans control the House and the Senate, to go forward to basically take the power back from the Secretary of State and put it in the state legislature to put forward the electors?
That is exactly what we're going to do.
That ridiculous, anti-democratic and ultimately pointless effort won him the belated endorsement of former President Trump and also got him a subpoena from the January 6th committee. And this gets to the heart of why Mastriano is such a dangerous gubernatorial candidate. As a state senator, he may have failed to grab power from the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, but if elected governor of that state, Mastriano would actually appoint the next Secretary of State, who would exert great control over the election process, which means that if Mastriano wins the general election, there is almost certainly no chance that a Democratic presidential candidate's victory in Pennsylvania in 2024 will be certified by the state's governor. As columnist Greg Sargent explains in the Washington Post, if the Democratic contender wins the popular vote in Pennsylvania in 2024 and Governor Mastriano declares widespread fraud, what's to stop his hand-picked Secretary of State from certifying the GOP candidate as winner, after which he could sign certification of that candidate's electors? Wow. This is not a drill. This is what we've been warning about on this show for a while now. The most extreme anti-democratic candidates are winning races and getting closer to securing crucial election-related positions in crucial swing states. So pay attention to Pennsylvania. Pay attention to Mastriano, because if a candidate like him wins office, those obstacles, those few obstacles that barely stopped Trump's coup attempt in 2020 will be totally gone in 2024. Joining me now to discuss all of this is national opinion columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Will Bunch, and editor-at-large at the 19th, Erin Haynes. Thank you both for joining me. Great to have you here. Will, let me start with you. Am I wrong in suggesting that Doug Mastriano is almost certainly not going to certify a 2024 election result for Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic candidate is in Pennsylvania? It seems like a no-brainer that that is exactly what he's not going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think he laid the evidence all right out. I mean, he said he was going to do that in 2020. So the only thing he didn't have in 2020 was he wasn't able to. He was just one lone state senator, and like he said, he was not able to get the House and Senate leadership on board. Although as we know, there was an alternate slate of Trump electors that did vote for Trump and did try and get their fake electoral votes down to D.C. for January 6th. But and they wouldn't have to pass legislation to circumvent the Secretary of State because, like you said, Mastriano, Pennsylvania is one of the minority of states where the Secretary of State isn't elected. He's appointed by the governor and would be rubber stamped by a Republican legislature. And we know, Mastriano has been associating ever since November 2020 with all of the leading proponents of big lie, stolen election theories. I have no doubt that he will appoint somebody, from Mike Lindell world, from that atmosphere. He's going to appoint somebody to be Secretary of State of Pennsylvania. And so, like you said, I mean, this is a all hands on deck, 5-alarm fire. Use whatever analogy. I mean, it's so fitting that it's happening here in Pennsylvania, right? The state of Independence Hall, this is going to be a real test, I think, to see if voters understand the challenge. Are voters going to get this? That this isn't just about keeping down the price of bacon. That may be important, but whether we have a democracy is a little bit more important than inflation, and we'll see how voters respond to that.
But our democracy is now on the line. It's been on the line for a while. It's on the line every day. Erin, I'm sorry to have to ask this question, but what does it say about the state of the Republican Party that a guy who goes to that kind of conference that we played a clip from is on the ballot in November for governor of the state, not member of the school board, it's not some minor friend, the governor of a crucial swing state? Amazing.
Well, Mehdi, what does it say about the state of the Republican Party that the Philadelphia Inquirer could not even endorse in the GOP primaries because they did not endorse because they said that they could not? I mean, I think, when I saw that, my eyebrows certainly went up because, and I don't know, Will, you can correct me. I've only been living here for a few years, but, I don't know that that's ever happened before. But yeah, to Will's point, the stakes could not be higher is what Josh Shapiro, who Doug Mastriano is going to be facing in November, that's what he tweeted just the morning after the election. Democrats are absolutely focused on the idea that the big lie is going to be on the ballot here in Pennsylvania, which really was ground zero. I mean, we remember that Pennsylvania was the state that delivered victory for Biden and Harris in 2020, and certainly where the former president focused so much of his ire after the election and so much of his claim that the election was rigged and fraudulent. And so all eyes are again going to be on Pennsylvania again, a state that claims the mantle as the cradle of democracy. this is going to be one of the biggest tests of where our democracy goes from here in this contest shaping up.
Well, as a result of Mastriano's victory, the Cook Political Report has moved the Pennsylvania governor's race from a toss-up to lean Democratic in favor of Josh Shapiro, the current AG. The runoff is also viewed as good news for Fetterman in the Senate race, while, Mehmet Oz and Dave McCormick, the two Republican candidates, still battle it out. We're still counting votes there. But I just think about 2016, and I think about Democrats getting excited, Hillary Clinton thinking that Donald Trump was the best candidate to face because he can't win. We've heard that before about far right-wing candidates not being able to win, and then they do.
Yes, I wrote that exact piece because a couple of weeks ago we had Josh Shapiro actually bought a TV ad that, even though it was ostensibly to warn, liberal voters about what a threat Mastriano is, but in talking about how Trumpy Mastriano is, he was actually trying to alert Trump voters out there that maybe they'd want to vote for Mastriano in the primary. In other words, he was trying to pick his opponent because I think he's falling into this same 2016 trap, right, of underestimating the power of the crazy out there in certain rural towns, certain Rust Belt, forgotten industrial towns. Nobody thought Donald Trump had a chance of winning Pennsylvania in 2016, and he won that year by 44,000 votes. And he only lost by 80,000 votes in 2020. And Trump had an ability to get rural voters who didn't normally vote, who didn't normally take part in the process. They came out of the woodwork to vote for Trump, and some of those people are going to come out of the woodwork to vote for Mastriano. And this could be a wave election on inflation and other issues and Joe Biden's popularity, and there's a real threat that he could be elected governor.
When we talk about, rigged elections in this country right now, Aaron, I want to play to you a clip of David McCormick's remarks. This is the Republican Senate candidate who's up against Trump's endorsed candidate, Mehmet Oz. Have a listen to what he said.
Right now, we have tens of thousands of mail-in ballots that have not been counted, that are going to need to be counted beginning tomorrow. And so that, unfortunately, we're not going to have resolution tonight, but we can see the path ahead. We can see victory ahead, and it's all because of you. So thank you, Pennsylvania.
So much irony in that he's saying we've got to wait for the mail-in ballots. This is a Trump-supporting candidate. He didn't get the endorsement, but he supports Trump. His wife was on stage with him there. She was Trump's Deputy National Security Advisor, Dina Powell. They're saying mail-in ballots. Let's wait for the mail-in ballots. And Republicans in the crowd are cheering. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is on his social media site today saying the election might be rigged. Dr. Oz should just declare victory against another Republican. The irony, I'm lost for words at how ridiculous this all is.
Well, that's the thing, Mehdi. The big lie was not just about 2020, right? Like, this has now taken root in our political ecosystem. And so you have other people, kind of it has blowback, even in places where maybe it wasn't intended, right? So now you've got a David McCormick saying, let's wait for the mail-in ballots, right? Even as the former president is raising the specter of whether or not this election is credible. But look, I think this all just kind of goes to the point that the MAGA movement is still looming very large in Pennsylvania, and it loomed very large over that primary with or without a Trump endorsement, right? I mean, Mastriano, yes, Trump did come in kind of in the 11th hour and jump on board the Mastriano bandwagon. This was somebody who was already kind of seen as likely to win the Republican nomination for governor. So, it's not like Trump really pushed him over the finish line in the way that he did maybe, a J.D. Vance in Ohio. But it will be interesting to see how the former president does factor into a general election contest. Former President Trump and his family members were really pretty heavily in Pennsylvania in 2016. I certainly remember hearing a lot of voters say how much they saw Trump and his family in the state leading into that election contest. And so he could be back, trying to make sure that he is kind of integral to a Mastriano victory if that ends up being the outcome. But I mean, even you see McCormick and also Kathy Barnett, certainly ran, in the MAGA fashion and even said in this cycle, MAGA does not belong to Trump. And I think she's right.
Yeah, so before we run out of time, Will, I want to ask you about the Democratic Party. We've talked about the Republican mess. What does it mean for the progressive wing of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party and of the Democratic Party as a whole that John Fetterman appears to have won so comprehensively against the centrist establishment candidate Connor Lamb, the House member?
Yeah, I think that Fetterman has shown there's a certain style. I think his victory was really a triumph of style, and I'm not saying he doesn't have substance. I mean, he's promising to get rid of the filibuster, be a 51st vote for the Biden agenda, and Democrats responded to that. But I think what they really responded to was his attitude that he's got this take no prisoners persona. Democrats want a fighter. I think the base Democratic voter feels there's been too much compromise. They're frustrated with the Joe Manchin wing of this party. They want somebody who can talk to them on their level, who seems to understand their concerns, somebody they want to have a beer with. And I think national Democrats would be smart to look at what Fetterman did very closely and see how they can. Fetterman's kind of a one-of-a-kind personality, right? He's 6'8" and that Mr. Clean look and everything. So that can't be duplicated. But I think his approach to voters and his ability to relate to everyday people is something the Democrats need to get back, and they should really study his secret sauce.